Hey guys, so what I want to talk about today is some things to consider before buying your very first Mark IV Toyota Supra Turbo. This car is near and dear to my heart. I'm wearing my TRD shirt in honor of this. I got this from Kurt at Elmhurst Toyota. If you guys know who that is, it means you've been in the Supra game a long time. So today I just want to kind of go over just some, just tips, things to look at and consider before you actually make your purchase. As these cars have gotten older, they've gotten a lot more collectible and a lot more expensive. I actually, through VinWiki, tracked down one of my two Supras. It was the white 6-speed with a 66 on it. I sold the car for $23,000 back in 2005, 2006 time range, right before I got my Viper. And I looked, and it looks like, first of all, it's an abomination now at this point with what's done to the body on it. But it was sold for over $50,000, so kind of made me a little sick to the old tummy. But yeah, so today, like I said, I want to talk about just some things to take a look at. And it's going to kind of vary depending on what you're actually looking for. If you're looking for just like a piece of shit that you can make into a race car, or you want something super, super pristine, these ones might not pertain to you if you don't really care about the car you get. So if that's the case, more power to you. But I guess the first thing that I would want to look for is, at this point, you want to look for rust. These cars are getting older, so some of them are going to have some rust on them. And I would want to know that ahead of time, not just on the body panels, but underneath as well. Second thing is, if you're buying one of these, super pristine stock cars, I would check to make sure that all the VIN tags are there and they're in the proper locations. It'll show that the body panels are the actual original ones that, will help alleviate any sort of stress that the car was in an accident. The third thing that I would look at is, I would start, if they're trying to sell it as it being the original paint, is use a paint meter. The reason for that is the only way. What it does is it measures the amount of material between the bare metal surface and then just the surface of the actual paint. I don't know exactly how it does it, but that's what it does. I'm not sure how much they are. A friend of mine told me I think they're about $700. But if you're looking for one that's original paint, it's really the only way to tell. What I mean by that is, if you get a reading that says 0.06 to 0.09 in 3 random corners that you check it in, but then the fourth one says 1.2, you know that is not the original paint, so that it was resprayed or the panel was replaced at some point. The fourth thing, and this kind of goes into the first topics that was covered, is you want to make sure the mileage is representative of the overall condition. It's fairly easy to manipulate the mileage on these cars. It's easy to disconnect the odometer. From what I understand, all it does is make you lose a little bit of speed. It doesn't need to be hooked up for the ECU to run the car. So that's why you see all these cars that are 20, almost 30 years old, and they've got less than 50,000 miles on them. I mean, for sure, at this point, they're collector cars, but before, people weren't necessarily thinking of them all as being collectors. And it is kind of fishy how there's so many examples of cars that are super, super low mileage. So make sure that, that it doesn't look like it's a pile of garbage and it's being sold with like 30,000 miles. That's all I'm saying. Fifth thing, and this is kind of important, is check the condition of the 6-speed transmission. I say that because it's not necessarily really that hard in like a normal car to rebuild the transmission or replace parts. However, with these, they don't actually make the parts anymore, so it is really hard and almost impossible to rebuild or replace parts in the transmission. You want to check for any sort of like a whine, hard to get in gears, popping out of gears, it shifts clean. I was on Facebook, and a friend of mine who has had a lot of Supras over the years, he was selling a 6-speed transmission. It was brand new, but he was selling it for, I believe it was like 12 grand. So that's a lot of money to be sinking into just kind of like a stock transmission that, it's easy to tell right from the get-go if there's going to be some basic issues. If you do come across a car like that, one thing that a lot of people do is they switch out to the T56. I don't know how that's actually done. I've never done it, but I just know that it is popular. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but Granis Racing has a video, I believe, of them performing the swap. I don't know how much they charge though. Next thing, I guess sixth thing, is I would take a check for the valve stem seals. It's not hard to do. It's just, on cold start, there's going to be a little puff of smoke from like the oil burning. It's pretty common. Cars are getting old, so it's a simple way to just sort of check, and it's not expensive to change them out. But again, if you're going to be dropping a ton of money in one of these, I would rather have something that I don't have to do anything with that I don't necessarily want to. Seventh thing is I would check the bushings and the ball joints. Mainly being the bushings are going to be getting pretty old if they've never been changed before, because these cars, like I said, at best are 22 years old, I think, at this point, if my math serves me correctly. The ball joints, though, the reason why I mentioned that is that you can't actually change them independently, is that they're part of the control arm assembly, so it can get a little pricey. So those are the main things that I would take a look at, guys. But again, people don't buy these cars to leave them bone stock. So, make sure, another one, I guess, to add on top of that is that if it is heavily modified, make sure it was done by a reputable shop and not some guy that claimed to be a mechanic or his buddy was a mechanic and they did it in their backyard. Those ones never seem to really work right. Wiring becomes a big issue. So that was a bonus one if you're buying a heavily modified one. But with that being said, and the point I was really trying to make with bringing that up is that, these cars, you get them to modify them, put some big single turbos on them. Technology these days has, gotten a lot more advanced than back in the early 2000s when I was running around in a Supra. So it's still a very, very impressive car, and I love it. I would definitely consider buying another one if they weren't super, super expensive. As there's some other cars on my list that I would like to try first before maybe getting another Supra. But that being said, guys, I hope it was informative, and hopefully it can save maybe a few people a few bucks when they're going out and looking for their Mark IVs. So I appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next time.